All right, welcome into SportsBIT Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Monday, June 27th. Big game breakdown is going to be the Mets and the Nats and the Cardinals and the Royals. Deep dive. We get to the AFC North today. First team up, Baltimore Ravens and the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets. How about bad beats for the bookmakers with the Euro Cup Sunday? Teddy, 3 favorites, 3-0.
Yeah. And, of course, all 3 games go over the total.
Yo.
Germany and Belgium go over the game totals by themselves. So when you talk about parlay clusters, that is a very, very rough result for the house. 3 chalk, 3 overs on Sunday in the Euro Cup. But they got some back when Argentina lost to Chile in the Copa final, didn't they, Paul?
Yes, Argentina, big favorite, and 0-0. They went to PKs before Chile pulls the upset. Messi misses the goal. Oh, my God, that was unbelievable as Chile gets the win. All right, you think there's some betting interest in politics? Folks in Nevada were excited when the Broncos and the Panthers played in the Super Bowl, and it set a new record handle in February. That's chump change compared to what just happened, right, Teddy?
Oh, yeah, look at the numbers. You know, Super Bowl 50, this is a legal handle in Nevada. $132.5 million. Again, that is a new record for the state of Nevada. Well, look what they just voted on in Britain. Or shouldn't voted on. Look what they just bet on in Britain over the Brexit. 162 in U.S. millions for the handle. The legal bet shops in Great Britain wrote far more on the Brexit vote than what Nevada Sportsbook wrote on the Super Bowl. And, Pauly, you know, Jimmy Vaccaro's been calling for this forever.
He's a legend in this town. He's been a bookmaker for over 40 years, the only guy to be on The Simpsons and Late Night with David Letterman. He said if we could bet on the presidential election here, it would make the Super Bowl look like a MAC game on a Wednesday night. That's saying something, man. He's right.
I'm with you 100%. Everyone likes betting on politics. And here, again, we're talking about just like Trump was a huge long shot in the betting markets. Well, guess what? Brexit was a 3-1 underdog, and anyone that bet the Brexit will cash, or already cash, because they won. So it's one of those situations where the betting public isn't necessarily in tune with the actual public when it comes to these type of numbers, and that was definitely the case for Brexit. Smart move for anyone that got the yes on that vote and cashed a nice plus price ticket.
And I know, fingers crossed, I know you got a piece of Kim Kardashian to be president in 2020 at 5,000 to 1. So good luck with that ticket. Another bad bet. Kershaw closed $3. He got roughed up, gave up 4 runs in an inning, and that was the difference.
Well, I mean, roughed up. Okay, yes. It was tied for the shortest outing of the season.
Yep.
Yes, it was second most earned runs allowed in a game this season. Yes, it was the most walks allowed in a game this season. That being said, the most walks allowed in a game this season is 2. You know what I mean? All right, he gave up 4 earned runs. Guess what? They all came in the second inning. They were all 4 came with 2 outs, and it was basically 1 hit. You know, Freese hit that 2 out bases clearing double, and that was the difference. So to say, Kershaw got lit up, no, he was human. He is human. But when he was $3 at close, obviously he was a very, very bad bet. And the Pirates, we talked about them on the weekend preview edition of SportsBIT, talking about how they were 2-12 in the last 14, really struggling to step up in class. Well, they bounced back nicely against the Dodgers over the weekend, taking the last 3 in that series.
Yep, more bad bets. How about the Blue Jays? No respect for Chris Sale, who's now 13-2 with a 2.79 ERA.
And we talked about this the last time Sale pitched, where the money was pouring in against him. Sale's now 13-2 with a 2.79 ERA. The White Sox took a 2-0 lead in the third. They never trailed the game. I'm baffled as to what the markets are seeing, that they're fading Sale on a game-in, game-out basis. But it didn't work out for them on Sunday. I'm not convinced it's going to work out for them the next time they do it, which may well be the next time he pitches.
Sure. Bad bets continue with the Cubs. Their first skid, they've dropped 6 of 7. Cause for concern?
No. Listen to this Joe Madden quote. He was asked that very question. Is this cause for concern? He says, no, not at all. If we were playing at full strength with everybody out there and things were normal, you could possibly get a little concerned. We're not a normal group right now. We'll get the guys back. Of course, there's 10 Cubs players on the DL right now, including their entire starting outfield. Schwarber, Fowler, Soler, all on the DL. This is Chicago trying to fight with one hand behind their back. They had a bad week. Yep. It happens in MLB. Hopefully, that Cubs run line trend that we talked about as such a profit maker early in their season, you were smart enough to jump off it over the course of the last week or so.
You got buried if you were betting unders this weekend in Coors.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you sure were.
Oh.
That D-backs Rockies series were the finals. 7-6, 10-9, 9-7, 11-6. All 4 games go over 11 or higher. Sunday's total closed 12.5. That's the highest total of the year in Major League Baseball, and it still flew over by the top of the 6th inning.
Yeah.
That, you make an argument that baseball totals are at their very weakest at the highest edges, 11, 11.5, 12, because the markets won't take a 13. They won't take a 14. It just doesn't go higher than a 12.5. And obviously, this is a series at Coors where the wind was blowing out and where the bullpens were all used up and where both lineups were hitting and all of that. That's set up for a high-scoring affair. And over, all 4 overs cash for these.
One more bad bet. The Red Sox, the Rangers win another series.
Yeah, what's it, 11 straight series wins since getting swept at Oakland. That was, May 16th when that happened. Texas now, they're up 29 units. 29 units. We're not at the All-Star break yet. They're up 29 units. The number 2 team is only up 16.8 units. That's San Francisco. The Rangers are essentially lapping the field right now when it comes to MLB profitability. And again, another series win against Boston.
Yep.
Got the job done on Sunday.
Very impressive. Not much to recap as far as the NBA draft. We did have one big trade, though, between the Magic and the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of what we talked about on Friday. All right, we're going to recap on Monday, and that's fair. Because, frankly, when it comes to the NBA draft, there's a lot of yap, and not that much in terms of actual opinion. So, when I went back through and looked at all the draft choices one by one, I'm like, I don't know that anything that happened in that draft is going to affect any team's 2016 win total by more than a game or two. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, at the most. So when it comes to big events in the draft, there wasn't that many of them. Obviously, everyone's going to, all the guys that need to put out content are going to have grades for everybody the next day. That's all nonsense. You and I both know that, Paul.
Yep.
But the one big trade, I thought it was a fleece. I thought Oklahoma City fleeced Orlando. I'm not sure I would have traded Oladipo for Ibaka straight up.
Wow.
Let alone throwing in Ilyasova and Sabonis in there. Then again, that was a trade, not a draft choice. So when it comes to breaking it down, we're allowed to have opinions. So we're talking about veterans. We're talking about rookies. The true experts aren't right more than half the time, let alone someone like you or me, Pauly, who are just following what the experts are saying when it comes to draft recap. We're not in the workout rooms. I'm not in any GM's suite. Yeah, we don't have any of that stuff bugged. To talk about the draft in that regard, but when talking about veterans, we can say, I like Oladipo's game. I do. And I'm not convinced that they're talking that Ibaka is going to be their go-to offensive weapon too. We'll see. I've been wrong before, but this isn't one that I would have made if I was Orlando.
Mets and Nats. We start off big game breakdown next on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today.
Hey guys, tune into the Odds Couple Show for today, Monday, June 27th. I got a couple second half plays. I'm pretty much thinking are good bets, and I've been a good long term on second half plays in baseball. How you feel about this card, my friend?
I like it, good? Pistol Pete. I got an underdog that I really like. I'm all over
awesome.
Today.
Odds Couple Show, Monday, June 27th.
All right, time for a big game breakdown. Remember, live odds, sportsbookreview.com, the Mets and the Nats. $5, 7 the total. Thor against Ross. A couple weeks ago, this was supposed to be a monster series. These teams are really struggling, especially the Nationals, who finally won Sunday, Teddy, to snap that 7-game losing streak.
Yeah, but I mean, they're limping home on a 1-7 run. Not like the Mets are playing a whole lot better. The Mets got to play the Braves the last 2 weekend series, and they went 2-5 in the 7 games combined. All of a sudden, the door's been left open for the Marlins.
Yeah.
They're now tied with the Mets for second. They're only 3 games out of first place, but we talked about this on SportsBIT last week. The Mets offense is absolutely dead. Number 27 in OPS for the month of June. Only the Braves, Phillies, and Pirates have been worse. And, of course, that Nats bullpen, which was so good early, that's fallen apart. They've got a 4.68 ERA in June. Mm-hmm. That ranks number 22 in MLB. So a bad lineup and a bad bullpen. Which way do we go?
Well, they know they've been able to count on Thor the entire year, but now there could be concerns on that front after what happened in his last start.
Yeah, of course. He's already up to 90 innings on the season. He's number 1 in baseball in average velocity of his fastball, number 6 in ERA, and number 2 to Clayton Kershaw in fielding and pitching, FIP. But the last start when he was on the mound, he said, my right elbow hurts.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, everybody starts to get nervous. Here's a quote. Syndergaard, just a little flare-up. I do the best I can get out there every 5 days and put my body in the best possible position to succeed and compete to the fullest of my abilities. But some days you go out there and you don't have your best up. I had a little pain in a little area, and it ended up being my elbow. I told the trainers what happened, and they wanted to go ahead and get a precautionary MRI. It came back with the ligament looking really strong and healthy. So at least for an initial concern for Syndergaard's elbow, doesn't look to be any sort of an issue heading into this start.
Yeah, they catch a break there. So now you have Joe Ross, who gets the opportunity to go up against this Mets benign offense, and he won't blow you away with his stuff, but he's picking it up when the Nats need him to.
Yeah, and again, Joe Ross, a guy we've talked about on the show a fair bit as well. You know, he had some control issues early in the season, but his last 3 starts, we're talking about 19 strikeouts against only 3 walks. His ERA now at a career best 3.11. And look, you know, what does Dusty Baker need from a guy like Joe Ross right now? He needs him to do 2 things. He's got to step up a little bit more, with Steven Strasburg going to be missing for a while. And, of course, he's got to try to eat up some innings and lessen the load on the bullpen. See if he can get to the 7th. You know, I mean, they hung on for that win against the Brewers on Sunday, and yet they still allowed runs in both the 8th and the 9th inning. And, of course, Dusty Baker doesn't even know who's going to start on Tuesday yet. He's going to be calling someone up from the minors. Now, you know, Ross is a guy who's often undervalued by the markets because he doesn't jump out in any particular category, but there are a handful of sharps that really like him because he doesn't have a negative stat anywhere. That being said, the Nats, we talked about the Mets offense not hitting. What about the Nats offense? By the time Sunday's game ended, Daniel Murphy was the only guy in the lineup hitting better than 255. Bryce Harper, the best player in baseball, he's down to 249 right now in the midst of a nasty little slump.
Yep, game number 2. The I-70 series, Cardinals and the Royals, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. $1.10, 8.5, Wainwright against Duffy. So the Cardinals swept the Cubs on the road. Then they go to Seattle and they're flat. This is where you need a veteran like Wainwright to step up tonight, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll give St. Louis credit for a real solid come-from-behind win on Sunday after they had that rough start to the trip at Seattle where they came out flat as a pancake, but they played really well on Sunday, and again, rallied back and got their offense going with, I think it was 4 straight solo home runs in the latter stages of that ballgame. That being said, we're talking about Adam Wainwright. Was once one of the best pitchers in baseball. Since his surgeries and missed seasons has not quite been the same guy, but he's been a steady groove of late, Paul, after that slow start. He's not going to be a dominator anymore. There is potential problems in the late innings. Wainwright hasn't gone beyond the 7th all season, but for St. Louis, it's not just Wainwright. Where's this team get a save from right now? I mean, they are a mess at the closer spot right now.
Horrendous. Rosenthal did not face a save situation yesterday, but Rosenthal is going to be semi-demoted till he can work things out. In the last 5 games, 2 1/3, 7 runs, 10 hits, 3 walks. In 2 of the games, he didn't retire a batter.
Yeah, that's rough, for especially for a closer. But, that's an issue for St. Louis at the end of the ballgame. For Kansas City, the issues may come a little bit earlier with Danny Duffy. And that's another topic we've covered a handful of times here on SportsBIT. Now there's a question whether there might be a roadblock in some of the success that Duffy has been having. Because, again, he had great stuff versus the Mets in his last outing. 8 strikeouts, only 4 hits allowed. But this is a guy that hadn't topped 88 pitches all season. And all of a sudden, Ned Yost is leaving him into 103. He was dead gassed at the end. He gave up that 2-run home run to Asdrubal Cabrera in the 5th inning, and that was the last we saw of him. Does Duffy bounce back for that? A guy that has to build his stamina back up. We've talked about that. Is it going to get all the way built back up? Because maybe a big part of his effectiveness is not having to think about going deep into ball games, Paul. You look at the numbers, and again, the strikeouts per 9, the strikeouts percentages, the swinging strike percentages, all near the top of the leagues, but those are great numbers that may not hold up if he has to start throwing higher pitch counts.
Yep. Up next, back to the NFL, AFC North. Baltimore Ravens up first in the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.
All right, big week coming up on SportsBIT. We continue our NFL team previews. Phil Steele coming up later this week. Mr. College Football. We'll break every conference down coming up. All right, Baltimore Ravens today. 3-1 to win the division. Over a win total over under 8.5. There's some 8s out there. 31 new players. 5-11 straight up last year. 5-9-2 ATS. 9-7 of the under. 0-6-2 ATS is a favorite. 4-1 ATS. Getting 6 or higher, Teddy.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, and one thing we haven't done a lot in these team previews is talk about the Week 1 lines. Baltimore's laying 2.5 against Buffalo at home in Week 1. Mm-hmm. And all my sources are telling me that Baltimore's going to be laying 3 by kickoff, and if you like the Ravens, bet them now at 2.5 and lock in under the key number. When I see that they were favored 8 times last year and didn't cover a point spread in any of those games, I'm not necessarily quite as excited to rush to the betting window and lay 2.5 with Baltimore. But look, I mean, their mainstream stats were just fine last year. They were number 14 in total offense. They were number 8 in total defense. Mm-hmm. They finished minus 0.1 yards per play. That's tied for 15th in the NFL. What were the problems? Well, 2 of them, and 2 huge ones that caused a franchise that had been here to drop all the way down to here. Number 1, they had the number 31 ranked turnover differential, tied with Tennessee, minus 14 in turnovers, so average almost a minus 1 turnover per game. And of course, the injuries were a disaster last year. Everybody got hurt. They had 20 players on injury reserve by the end of the season. That's a franchise record. Note, they replaced the artificial turf at M&T Bank Stadium with natural grass this year. That's something that you probably want to be aware of. They are hoping that will reduce some of the multitude of injuries that this squad suffered a season ago. Suggs
tore his ACL in Week 1. Flacco got hurt for Set, Smith, Canty, many others ended the season on IR, but just about every one of those guys is back, Teddy, and they get a lot of respect from the market.
Yeah, and look, I mean, John Harbaugh's back. He's entering his 9th year as a head coach. Mark Trestman's in his 2nd year as the offense coordinator. Dean Pease is in his 7th year as the defense coordinator. There is significant staff continuity in Baltimore. But, you look at the market respect, this team lost a lot. You talked about the 31 new players at the top of the show. Canty's gone, along with safety Will Hill, linebackers Darryl Smith and Courtney Upshaw. That's 4 defensive starters from a pretty good defense that just bolted. They also lost their best offensive lineman when Kelechi Osemele left for Oakland. They're hoping that the number 1 draft choice, Ronnie Stanley out of Notre Dame, can at least start.
He'll be good
to fill his shoes.
Yep.
But significant losses. Now, they do have some nice additions, and you can talk about some of these guys that are coming in and likely to have some type of an impact.
You get Weddle, that's huge. They grab him from the Chargers. Powers is a nickel cornerback, 82 starts in 7-year career. Richardson, no thank you. But Mike Wallace and also Ben Watson at tight end.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this wide receiving core was pretty anemic last year. You know, when Kmar Aiken and the rookie tight end Max Williams are your go-to guys, it's clearly a problem, even though Aiken had a really good season. But when you look at this receiving core now, with a healthy Flacco, they get last year's number 1. Remember Rashad Perryman? He got hurt.
He got hurt again?
In training camp. Yeah. Is he out for the year?
No. But he got banged up. They don't know. They thought it was bad early on, but still, the guy, you got to be going crazy when you see that guy drop again.
No question. But in theory, he's supposed to be back. I mean, Perriman, everything I've been reading is that they're counting on him to have an impact this fall.
Yeah.
He was their number 1 pick a year ago. You have Steve Smith back. You have Aiken. You have, and you talked about the 2 free agent signings. Mike Wallace, maybe he didn't live up to the big money in Miami, but the guy can play. And Ben Watson's coming off a big year. This team does have a whole lot of targets for Joe Flacco to throw to.
Salary cap situation still a mess, especially after they gave Flacco all that money. His total QBR since his Super Bowl win, 24th in the NFL. What do we think of him, Teddy?
Again, if you don't have a quarterback, you need a quarterback. When you have a quarterback, you have to pay a quarterback. Your choices are between Joe Flacco and Brock Osweiler. I pay him. The guy won a Super Bowl. And of course, this is a team, you talked about the salary cap situation still being a mess. Mm-hmm. They were able to re-sign a handful of key veterans. But this is going to be a problem for Baltimore, not just this year, next year, the year after. And what happens when a team's up against its salary cap year after year? You end up with a lack of quality depth. You end up with what happened to the Dallas Cowboys last year. where a couple of key guys got hurt, and then boom, the bottom dropped out. Now look, the markets still respect the hell out of GM Ozzie Newsome.
Yep.
This is one of the best organizations in the NFL, but make no mistake about it, there are still a good handful of holes on this roster.
How about the schedule?
Well, I mean, last year they were just about the league average in terms of strength of schedule. This year, they're at the league average again, basically. The AFC North, they're going to play the AFC East and the NFC East. They're 2 extra games. They get Jacksonville and Oakland, a benefit of having faced or having such a bad season last year. But then again, the Jags and Raiders, those 2 teams are both on the rise right now. You look at the schedule overall, you can picture a 5-2, 6-1 type start, very possible. A week early slate, but boy, things get tough down the stretch. The 3 December road games. How about this? At New England, at Pittsburgh, at Cincy. All teams lied at 9.5 or higher. Ouch. 3 different sets of back-to-back roadies as well. So while the Ravens' schedule, in terms of strength of schedule, is comparable to what we saw last year, it is a notch or 2 tougher, I think, than the markets are probably giving them credit for, simply because all of those back-to-backs, all of those tough December road games.
Yep. Early lean?
Early lean can only be Baltimore under.
Okay.
I'm not sold on the Ravens immediately bouncing back off of last year's debacle.
Yeah, and coming up later in the week, there's a team that we love under in this division coming up. Look for that later in the week on SportsBIT. All right, got back on track last week with a winning week. Tough loss Friday. Had the Twins game over. It was 4-3 in the fourth, and the Twins couldn't score the rest of the game. Money time, play of the day. Where are we going today, Teddy?
Well, let's go to the series on I-70. We're going to take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals, team number 967. Basically a pick-em price, minus 105. And, we've been long overdue on this show to focus on Almeida Diaz. 10 home runs and 40 RBIs already in his rookie season. He came up big time in Seattle when the Cardinals needed him on Sunday. 3 doubles and a walk as they rallied for the victory. I like St. Louis's mindset coming into this one, and I have no hesitation fading Duffy off that 103 pitch effort, his highest pitch count of the year. Let's take St. Louis minus 105 and hope that Rosenthal doesn't kill us at the end. The lack of a bullpen, a lack of a closer, I should say, doesn't kill us at the end. St. Louis is the choice for the play of the day.
All right, big 2 weeks coming up. NFL, college football with Phil Steele, UFC 200 preview with a big-time guest. All that coming up on SportsBIT, Betting Insight Today.